Yo, what's good, everyone? I appreciate y'all for tuning in this Friday night where we're going to talk a little bit about law enforcement, more particular law enforcement who have gone rogue and just decided to do their own thing. So, we got a couple of interesting stories at the federal level and the state level. We're going to dive in and talk about it. As always, if you're new to the channel, I'm Marcus, and here we talk attorney reactions to trending news, current events, any topic that's just kind of interesting that, hey, may just be interesting or something y'all hit me up and say, yo, what's going on with this? Definitely got a few interesting stories from you all. So shout out to you all. Shout out to the over 17,000 subscribers, the members, everybody who interacts. I'm appreciative and very grateful that you all allow me some time to just y'all hear me talk and give my take and opinion. As always, I'm licensed. I've been practicing law for a minute, but I'm not your attorney. So this isn't legal or financial advice. This is just me giving my opinion and takes on topics for infotainment purposes. So if you're looking for legal or financial advice or a barber or a mechanic, find a professional in your area who can get you squared away. Now, I originally was going to do the story, as always, we do the cover story last. Okay. So I originally was going to put the thumbnail up about the rogue DE agent. Shout out to everybody in the chat as well. Shout out. I want to give props. Always got to give props to, special props to the first comment of the day. This comment was up even before I started the live, and your boy started a little late. I was on CP time. So, hey, shout out to everybody who commented. Shout out for the first comment of the day. For some reason, I'm not surprised. She's only making their job harder. I actually concur with that. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hey, I definitely appreciative, definitely grateful. Hey, unfortunately. Oh man, come on. I don't even want to know what is your team. Go ahead and put your team in the chat so we can see what your team is. Go ahead and drop your team in the chat so we can have a talk and have a discussion. I actually lost a bet last year with a subscriber, and I had to wear like a Dallas Cowboys shirt during the live stream, and actually changed that picture to my profile picture. It was terrible too, because people were like screenshotting it and texting it to me and emailing it to me and all sorts of stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting. Now let's talk about it. We're gonna start out with the DEA agent, then we're gonna pivot to the thumbnail. Now we talked about it before. Early on, we talked about why is it important for persons in law enforcement or in any job where you could be susceptible or around large sums of money to actually not be broke as fuck. It's very important, and this is the reason why a lot of jobs and employers would do background checks, and then those background checks they'll run a credit report, and they want to see kind of what your finances is looking like. And I told this story before. Trust me, your boy got denied a job back in the day because my credit was terrible. They was like, nah, bro, we're not gonna put you in here. You might steal something. But uh there is a rationale that makes sense as to why you want to make sure a person who does a certain job has their finances together. Let's just be realistic. Would you really want, I mean, we see it all the time, but would you really want, like, I don't know, your mayor or your chief of police to actually like be broke as hell, be in bankruptcy, owe everybody money? The logic behind it is you don't want that because it's going to make them susceptible to either stealing, it's going to make them susceptible to misappropriation of funds, it's going to make them susceptible to taking bribes or want to take bribes. But therein lies the problem. The problem is most law enforcement jobs, most jobs with people who work in their financial institutions, they aren't the chief operating officer or the chief financial officer making a shitload of money. Normally, they're like entry level positions, a secretary, a new police officer who just started out on the beat. They aren't making that much money. And because they aren't making that much money, every day you're a new cop where nobody really give a damn about your job. You're making $40,000, $50,000 a year. And every day on the corner while you out there risking your life, what do you see? You see a bunch of D boys out there making tens of thousands of dollars hand over fist every day, and that money has to go from the corner through your hands into evidence. Well, if you broke, if you got money problems, if you're influenced by stuff and wanting stuff, eventually you might get like some of them shady cops out there who want to skim a little bit off the top. You may start renting drug corners. You may want to snatch a little bit of the evidence off the top. You may want to siphon off a little bit of the cocaine to keep for yourself to sell on the side. So money problems leave people susceptible to doing bad things. So let's go ahead and dive into this article. This first one is an article, and this is actually interesting. I looked this up. Well, I won't tell how I found this article, but I didn't see it in the news. I found it after it happened. But this one is about a DEA agent who decided to become a money launderer for the cartel. So we're going to go ahead and check out the article. It's a 5-minute video that we're going to watch. I didn't want to get into this indictment because it's not as interesting as the other one, in my opinion. But we're going to read the article, watch a 5-minute video of this guy and what he's saying, and then we're going to rap about it. Then we're going to dive into topic number 2. So let's go ahead, get everything queued up. I like to put the article on the screen so if y'all want to see it, y'all could actually take a look at it. All right. Former special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration was sentenced to more than 12 years in prison after he pled guilty to taking part in a wide-ranging conspiracy that used cash seized in undercover drug operations to buy jewelry, cars, a house in Colombia, prosecutors said. The former agent, Jose Ismael Irizarry, 47, and his wife, Natalia Gomez Irizarry, pled guilty to charges that they carried out a 7-year scheme to funnel more than $9 million from undercover drug investigations into bank accounts that they and their co-conspirators controlled. One of these co-conspirators was the leader of the Colombian drug trafficking organization who became godfather to Mr. Irizarry's children, according to federal prosecutors in Tampa. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I actually pulled this article up. I didn't go through and read all of it, but I do believe that his wife, Natalia Gomez, was a citizen of Colombia. Now, think about how, let's just be, and I don't know if there's a familial relationship between his spouse and the head of this Colombian drug trafficking organization, but think about the type of relationship that you actually have to have with someone, the type of relationship that you have to have with someone, and for in order for you to be like, yo, I want you to be like the godfather to my child or the godmother. Like, I don't know about y'all. Maybe people accept roles as godparents and just take that shit lightly. But if somebody was like, yo, I want you to be the godmother or father to my child, I think that's something that people should take seriously. I mean, I know I would. I'd be like, oh man, I actually got a real obligation if something happened to this person to make sure that I'm looking out for this child. That's kind of how I look at it. So, in order for a DA agent to make Colombian drug trafficker, money launderer, the godfather of his child, it has to show that, yo, they probably had a really good relationship. Let's go ahead and jump back in the article. Let me go ahead and make that so we can always take a look at it. All right, it said Mr. Irizarry pleaded guilty to charges that included conspiracy to launder money instruments, honest services, wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Mr. Gomez is Mrs. Gomez Irizarry pled guilty to conspiracy to launder money instruments. She was sentenced to 60 months of probation in order to forfeit a Tiffany diamond ring, according to the U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General. Mr. Irizarry, who had worked for the DEA in Miami, Cartagena, Colombia, and Washington before he resigned in 2018, was arrested in 2020 along with his wife near their home in San Juan, Puerto Rico. A 19-count indictment, Mr. Irizarry was accused of engaging in a corrupt scheme while he was assigned to investigate money laundering by drug trafficking organizations. The indictment accused Mr. Irizarry of enriching himself by secretly using his position and his special agent access to information to divert drug proceeds from DEA control to the control of himself and his co-conspirators. One co-conspirator was identified in the indictment as a public official in Colombia who prosecutors said had used drug money to buy a $329,000 Lamborghini Spider from a Miami car dealership. Mr. Arizari was accused of using drug money to buy a Land Rover, a home in Cartagena. Prosecutors said that Mr. Arizari had admitted that he began exploiting his position as a federal agent to enrich himself and his co-conspirators soon after he filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Hurting for money. Once a bankruptcy come in, if you're in that position, you should probably have some heightened level of scrutiny, or they probably should take you out of a position where you like actually have access to illegitimate funds and those type of investigations. Maybe put you on desk duty, put you in charge of training or something, somewhere where you can't fall in that trap to quench that thirst to get out of your bad financial situation. The indictment described a sprawling scheme in which Mr. Arizari filed false reports on investigations, prompting a ripple effect that caused his colleagues at the DEA to falsely document in detail the details of wire transfers, unwittingly concealing the source of drug profits that he controlled. Mrs. Gomez Arizari was accused of running a shell company out of the couple's home in Miramar, Florida, that had no employees and sold no goods, but was used to take in and distribute money for her husband, collected, the indictment said. Former Special Agent Arizari abused the trust of the American people when he repeatedly violated his oath of federal law enforcement officer. Ann Milgram, the DEA administrator, said in a statement, bringing him to justice reflects the principles of those who faithfully serve and uphold the values of the DEA. At his sentencing in federal court in Tampa, Mr. Arizari wept and said that his biggest punishment was not being able to explain to his two young daughters why he would be gone for so long. The Associated Press reported he said he had been proud when he became a federal agent 2 decades ago. Unfortunately, there came a time when I made a decision that went against the person who I was, that damaged my wife and embarrassed my country. Mr. Arizari said, according to the AP, I should have known better and didn't and failed. While Arizari's sentencing came after another former special agent with the DEA, Chad Allen Scott, was sentenced to more than 13 years in prison after he perjured himself and directed others to commit perjury to obtain a conviction against the accused drug dealers, prosecutors said. Mr. Scott had falsified forms so he could take possession of a truck that a drug dealer bought for him, prosecutors said. Mr. Irizarry's lawyers, Maria A. Dominguez, blamed the culture of the DEA for encouraging such crimes. Jose was not the leader or the author of this conduct, she said in an interview on Thursday. It was conduct that he encountered when he first joined the DEA. He was corrupted in that sort of environment, which disrupted his moral compass. While sentencing, Mr. Irizarry's judge, Charlene Honeywell, confirmed that condemned the DEA for its failings and said other agents corrupted by the allure of easy money should be investigated, the AP reported. This has to stop, Judge Honeywell said. According to the AP, you were the ones who got caught, but it's apparent to this court that there are always others. Now, real quick, this dude, let's talk about this. I know, right? I'm tired of my phone ringing from every candidate, even like people. It's ridiculous. But shout out to everybody who joined the chat. Now let's talk about this. I don't know. I don't know. Actually, let's go ahead and pull up the video to see what he says. Then we'll talk about it because I want to go ahead and get through this. Let me go ahead and pull up this video. They had a chance to talk with former special agent Irizarry prior to him actually going in custody. So let's go ahead, cue this video up to see what he's talking about, and then we'll rap about it. Hey, shout out to Young Thug for getting out with 15 years of probation. That shit is wild. I got some opinions on that too. That's kind of crazy. But let's go ahead, check out what this DEA agent has to say, and then we'll rap about it before we jump into the next story.
Jose Irizarry says they called themselves Team America, a group of jet-setting, high-living federal agents and prosecutors who were supposed to be fighting the war on drugs. But the former Drug Enforcement Administration star says they all knew that war was unwinnable, so they were going to milk it for all it was worth.
DEA is a game. Drug war is a game. It was a very fun game that we were playing.
The 48-year-old Irizarry pleaded guilty in September 2020 to 19 criminal counts, including bank fraud and diverting millions in drug proceeds. For years, the Department of Justice portrayed the San Juan, Puerto Rico native as a rogue agent. But Irizarry says the problems go much deeper.
They kind of painted me in this picture of that I'm this mastermind of what we were doing, and I wasn't the mastermind.
In fact, the DOJ has begun questioning as many as 24 current and former agents and prosecutors who Irizarry claims either participated in or turned a blind eye to his abuses. Former federal prosecutor Bonnie Clapper is not involved in this case, but says the system allowed this to happen.
Nobody was minding the house. No one was checking to see. There were no controls.
The case revolves around a fact that most Americans aren't aware of, that the federal government launders tens of millions of dollars a year on behalf of the world's most violent drug cartels.
You launder 100,000 and you can figure out who dropped off the money. You work that person higher up into the organization. You find out who the traffickers are. You do bank subpoenas. You find out where the money is going. So the goal was to generate targets, seizures, and prosecutions.
But Irizarry says it became more of a private slush fund for him and his friends. He is
All right, real quick. One, she's 100% right. Every level of law enforcement, state law enforcement, federal law enforcement, hell, some old county, country law enforcement somewhere in rural America. There's a certain level of playing the game that has to occur by law enforcement in order for them to get the people who actually have the influence in any criminal organization. So isn't that surprising? You don't think that like I know 100% certain for a fact law enforcement have been aware. An example would be law enforcement being aware of someone who is engaged in the sale of drugs. They're selling illegal drugs. They know this person is selling illegal drugs, but they like, you know what? Let's just kind of wait and see to see how far this goes, to see who his contacts are, to see how far he can move up the food chain. Because if this person who we know is a known drug dealer can move up the chain and we have eyes on him, he's going to put us into position to acquire and arrest targets who are even higher than him on the food chain. So 100% correct. It happens all the time. It's part of the business. If law enforcement arrested the first person they saw who committed crime, no one of any significance will ever get arrested unless they were just ridiculous. They got caught doing something expressly red-handed. And a lot of times you'll see this when it comes to drug trafficking, mostly with small, lower level drug traffickers. They'll try to beat the system, and because in order to get a drug trafficking charge, it has to be a certain volume or amount of drugs. So they'll try to deliver a lesser amount than what the statutory amount is to get drug trafficking. So what do law enforcement do? They don't just come and arrest them when they have a lesser amount. They wait till they make stop number 1. Then they wait till they make stop number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And by the time they got stop number 5, all of those weights, all of those drugs on each collective stop in totality will put them in a qualified category to count as drug trafficking. Then they hit them over the head as they should. So there's always a little gamesmanship. The other thing I'm taking away from this video is this guy is full of shit. And what I mean by he's full of shit is it could be true. It probably is true. There are probably other agents and persons in law enforcement who are susceptible to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be offered to them from providing information to elude law enforcement. That is probably 100% true. But the fact that you're talking about all of this shit, me personally, if it was that big of a problem that you were so damn concerned about, you would have been talking about it prior to you getting arrested and having to eat these charges. The fact that you're talking about how terrible the culture is after you got caught means to me that like you like the worst type of criminal that criminals can't even respect. Like yo, if you come out and talk about it before, that's one thing. But if you come out and talk about it afterwards, like it is no benefit. You just salty that you were the one who got popped. that's kind of how I interpret it. Let's go and finish watching the rest of this video. But this guy, he sounds like he's full of crap to me. No accountability. He's blaming everything else on the environment. I don't care what the environment is. If it's an environment of everybody smoking crack, that don't mean that you necessarily have to smoke crack if you want a crack smoker. Let's just keep it a buck. Now, do it mean that it is probably going to be harder for you to do that? I'm assuming so. I never smoked crack before. Yeah, but I don't want to hear you blaming the environment after you got caught. That is part of the problem. It could be a viable point, but right now you're just asserting it because you're the guy who got popped.
Located a list of former colleagues in Miami, accusing them of lining their pockets and falsifying records to pay for parties and overseas jaunts.
It was mostly about drinking and girls. And then we sprinkled in a couple work things in there, but it was more of a party first, work second type of deal.
He says it paid for parties with prostitutes on a yacht in Cartagena, Colombia, lap dances at this now shuttered Dominican strip joint, dinner at this swanky Madrid restaurant, and tickets to a Real Madrid soccer match, even jewelry from the famed luxury boutique Tiffany's. The former Air Marshal and Border Patrol agent claims as many as 90% of his group's work trips were bogus.
Typical trip we would justify going for, we would make up either an interview or a coordination meeting, and we were determined where we wanted to travel. So we would make it wherever we kind of wanted to go.
And he says no one complained because Team America was racking up numbers.
We knew the game. We knew DEA is about stats. So our cases brought them stats, and it got very good press. Everybody was happy all the way around.
Clapper worked on such pickup operations with other agencies during her time at DOJ.
Those agents were meticulous. We would consult before every pickup, and we had goals. For every dollar we laundered, we had to seize 2. If not, we shut the operation down.
She says alarm bells should have been clanging over at DEA.
It's almost like it became a ball rolling downhill. Launder more money, seize more money. Launder more money, take more trips to Europe, take nice trips all over the world, and seize more money.
At least 3 current and former federal prosecutors accused by Irizarry have faced questioning in the ongoing probe. The Justice Department declined to comment. In a statement to AP, DEA said Irizarry was a criminal who violated his oath and the people's trust. The agency says it has strengthened discipline and hiring policies to ensure DEA's integrity and effectiveness. An Inspector General's report slammed the agency for failing to oversee these stings. The audit found that DEA hadn't submitted annual reports to Congress about the undercover operations since at least 2006. Ann Milgram, the DEA's new administrator, has ordered an outside review of the agency's foreign operations, which is ongoing. Earlier this year, Irizarry agreed to speak with the AP in Puerto Rico before saying goodbye to family. He says the whole war on drugs is flawed.
The only way we can do our job is to have informants. And the only good informants are the ones that play both sides, and we all know this.
In January, Irizarry reported to the Federal Correctional Institution, Miami, to begin serving a 12-year sentence. He says the job turned him into someone he wasn't.
I should have been stronger, and I wasn't, and I'm not, I can't justify my actions. I should have known. I knew it was right from wrong, and I chose wrong many times, and that's why I'm here.
Alan Breed, Associated Press.
Now, I don't know. I think this is a fair comment. I don't know. Is he the exception or the rule? His faults are very human. I mean, let's keep it a buck. I agree. Everybody wants to have more. Yeah, so they basically, everybody wants to have more. They basically took free vacations while having their own freak offs. Something like that. I actually saw an article where they talked about some of the things that he bought, and this dude had like a $1 million condo somewhere in Cartagena and all sorts of cars and everything. And I don't know. I do agree that it's human. If think about it, if you're a teacher, right, if you're a cop and you're making $50,000, these agents, they could be making anywhere from $90,000 to upwards of 191, $200,000 a year, which is a shitload of money. But when you have hundreds of thousands of dollars passing through your fingers every day just from the type of work that you're doing, I get it. I get that it's going to be difficult, but at some point you gotta actually. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Okay, like I don't give a damn how broke I am. I already know that if something go bad, I'm gonna get caught. So rather than going and get caught, I'm just gonna bow out gracefully. But I don't know. That whole video of that guy talking, he just talked about the culture and how he got caught up in the culture, and the culture made him do this. Like I don't know. I think if you're an opportunistic person, you're just gonna take an opportunity. I mean, let's say if this guy was working as a federal agent for that long, he probably was making one something, damn near $200,000 a year. Is that enough money for a person to survive and not be broke as fuck? Absolutely yes. I think it was a little bit of greed, a little bit of gamesmanship. I mean, honest, like I don't really know if that's something that could be stopped or even circumvented in any event. I just don't know, because there's always going to be the lure there. Even if a person has money, people always want more money. So there's always going to be a lure there. It's it's really nothing that could be done to stop it. Because I'll tell you from a operational standpoint, there's when there's certain operations going on, especially operations that are extremely secretive, there's no way leadership can know every damn minutia that's going on at the lowest level. And I just think about it as I don't know. The way I can think about it is, let's say when I was in the military. When I was in the military, when I was deployed to Iraq as a young NCO, we went out there and took care of business, and when we briefed up, we didn't tell every absolute detail of what happened, even if it was something that was done within the confines of the rules. No, like this was the objective, this was done, we got it done. Some things you just didn't need to know. That's just kind of how those things work. So, unfortunately, I don't know if it's something that could be fixed or rectified. You can strengthen the process of looking at candidates. You can do uply checks on people with regard to their backgrounds and their financial situation, but you don't have to be broke as hell to want more money. You can have a shitload of money and want more money. That's most times people with a lot of money always want more of it. So I don't even know. The takeaway from that story is shit is fucked up. The takeaway from that story is it's jacked up out there. Our tax dollars sometimes go to people doing the wrong thing. And unfortunately, I don't know if there's an absolute way of correcting that situation. What's going on? What's going on, everybody in the chat? Hey, shout out to you. No weapon formed against me. I appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, and I got it. I got exactly what he's doing, Evelyn. I agree that he's 100, and I agree that other people are doing it. This dude wasn't the only guy who's out there doing it. It probably is a finesse move. He probably learned from somebody who was more seasoned, more experienced than him. But I mean, you caught, bro. You already caught. Whatever chips you had to use as leverage, you probably should have used it to get your sentence reduced to what it was. Talking about it after the fact is the absolute worst thing that you could possibly do, in my personal opinion. Unless you're talking about it to get your sentence reduced, if you're not talking about it to get your sentence reduced, you may want to be quiet. I don't know. I wouldn't want to go talking around talking. I wouldn't want to go talking about something that's not going to benefit me by reducing my sentence to people with the means, motive, and money to peel your muffin top back. Like I don't know. I just don't think that's the smartest move. But y'all let me know what y'all think about that story. Now let's take a pivot to the state level. Now, before we look at this case, I want to pull up some of the images, because when somebody sent me this story, it was interesting because I was like, yo, is this a I was kind of confused when someone sent me the story originally, because I don't I don't really read the story. I kind of like somebody will send me an email about it with a link, and I'll read the email and be like, "Oh man, that sounds interesting." But I want to pull up. Let me see if I can pull up the images. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. All right, so we're gonna pull up the images first, okay? Now, when they told me the story and I clicked on the link, the images were the first things that I saw. And I said, man, wait, what? This is a cop? Okay. I was a little confused because it wasn't giving cop to me, right? It wasn't giving cop vibes, but I was like, okay, let me check out who this Grace Baez is, and let me scroll through her social media. So I was scrolling through her social media and I was like, okay, she is law enforcement. All right, tracking. Then I was scrolling, and after I saw that picture, I was like, yeah. It's like, but, well, kind of true. But after I saw that picture, I was like, man, let me click on this story. She's a cop, but I don't know. The headlines were weird. It would say something like BBL officer pleads guilty to drug trafficking. And I was like, what? I was like, how did they know I would click on it when they said BBL officer? I saw titles that had her name, and I was like, I'm not clicking on that. But the one that said BBL officer pleads guilty to drug charges, I was like, I'm gonna click on this one. So it actually got me interested. I read a brief news article and I said, you know what, this will be an interesting complaint to go in and to take a dive at. I will tell you, I'm not going to go through her social media. I'm not going to go through her social media, but I'm not going to go through her social media on this live. As somebody who already did some open source research, I was like, I immediately thought of the Lil Wayne song, wee, wee, wee. That was literally the first thing that came in my head. Y'all could go Grace Rosa Baez. Y'all could go check out her social media for myself. All I'm saying is, it's not giving cop. It's giving more like a IG model. That's the thing. Now, the other thing is, I need y'all co-counsel to see if y'all could do some more in-depth research. As this investigation was going on into her drug charges, apparently she was already placed on desk duty for another type of misconduct. Now, I'm not sure what misconduct it was. Hold on 1 minute. Let me go through. I'm not sure what type of misconduct it was. I couldn't figure out what misconduct it was. It just said that during the course of the investigation related to the drugs, she was already on desk duty for misconduct. So, hey, it is what it is. I mean, I'm just saying, man, you would have clicked on that picture. That's why if I would have had a DEA agent on the thumbnail versus those 3 photos of former Officer Baez, like, come on, that's the reason you probably clicked on the thumbnail. You probably like, oh man, what's this story with this girl with the alleged BBL and drug trafficking? This sounds interesting. So she said sue for mad mal. That BBL ain't good. Yeah, the legs, she got a little ant action going on. But she got a little ant action. She got a little thorax action going on like a bee. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the indictment. I'm gonna pull that up on the screen, and we're gonna do that on the big screen just in case y'all want to read along. It's not a long indictment, so we're not gonna be here. We're not gonna be here all day going through this indictment. Let me see. I want to pull this up. Let's do it that way, just in case y'all want to read along so y'all can see what was going on. Now, the very first thing I noticed as soon as I read this is Grace Rosa Baez and Cesar Martinez. So probably a couple. Anytime there's a guy and a woman in indictment, it's probably a couple, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, something to that effect. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this is, hey, shout out to Damian Williams. Southern District of New York strikes again. Southern District of New York just jamming everybody up. They getting Diddy. They getting they getting this chick. They getting Eric Adams. Southern District of New York, man. I shout out to y'all for the content. All right, so William Bonder, and essentially this is the criminal complaint against her that was filed in the Southern District of New York. William Bolender being duly sworn, deposed, and says that he is a special agent with the FBI, and charges as follow. Count 1, conspiracy to distribute narcotics in or about October 23, 2023 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Grace Rosa Baez and Cesar Martinez, the defendants, and others known and unknowingly and intentionally conspire confederated and agreed together with each other to violate the narcotics laws of the United States. It was part and object of a conspiracy that Grace Rosa Baez and Cesar Martinez, the defendants, and others known and unknown would and did distribute to possess with the intent to distribute a controlled substance in violation of Title 21. Title 21 is just drug stuff. Anytime you see Title 21, it's going to be DEA type stuff. Excuse me. The controlled substances that Grace Rosa Baez and Cesar Martinez, the defendants, conspired to distribute and possess with the intent to distribute were 400 grams and more of mixtures and substances containing a detectable amount of fentanyl and 1 kilogram and more of mixtures and substances containing a detectable amount of heroin in violation of Title 21. Count 2, distribution of narcotics. Same time frame, October 16th, same month, 2023. They tried to distribute. Let me just go and read it. On or about October 16th, 2023, in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Baez and Martinez, the defendants, knowingly and intentionally distributed and possessed with the intent to distribute a controlled substance in violation of Title 2021 and aided and abetted the same. The controlled substance involved were mixtures of substances containing fentanyl. Count 3, same thing, October 17th. All of these are different days. October 17th of the same month in 2023. Violation of Title 21. The controlled substance involved was a detectable amount of heroin. Count 4, distribution of narcotics. On or about October 19th, knowingly and intentionally violated Title 21. Drug shit. The controlled substances involved in the offenses were 400 grams or more of fentanyl, 1 kilogram of heroin. Same. The basis for my knowledge and the foregoing charges are in part as follows. I'm a special agent with the FBI, and I have personally been involved in the investigation in this matter. This affidavit is based upon my personal participation in the investigation, my examination of reports and records, and my conversations with other law enforcement officers and other individuals. Because this affidavit is being submitted for the limited purpose of demonstrating probable cause, it does not include all of the facts that I have learned during the course of my investigations, where the contents of documents and the action statements and conversations of others are reported herein. They are reported in substance and in part, except where otherwise indicated. They always got to write them like that. Okay, overview. All right, overview. Since at least in or about October 2023, members of law enforcement have been investigating the defendants who represented themselves to be wholesale narcotic distributors capable of providing kilogram quantities of cocaine, fentanyl, and heroin. Now, I'm just going to guess before I even got to the levels of this. I haven't even read this. I'm telling you, I haven't read it. This is my first time reading it. But I'm willing to guess it's 2 places that she probably could have got those amounts of narcotics from. One would be if she has the plug and the plug is her boyfriend. 2 would be if she's just doing some rogue shit and stealing it out the evidence room. It's 1 or 2 places. She could be the overall plug, but I seriously doubt it because these charges would be a lot different if she was. So it's either she's getting it from her man or someone else, or she's just jacking it out of the evidence room, is my guess. All right, investigators learned during the course of the investigations that at all times relevant to the conduct described herein, Grace Rosa Baez, the BBL officer, the defendant, was an active member of the New York City Police Department who had been placed on modified duty and was under departmental investigation for alleged misconduct. While that investigation was ongoing, and I don't know what that is. If y'all, co-counsel, if y'all could find out what she was under investigation for that got her placed on administrative duty during the course of this investigation, that would be dope because I'm interested to find out what that is. All right. While that investigation was ongoing and as described in greater detail below, Baez and Martinez, the defendant, provided, amongst other things, both samples as well as kilogram quantities of fentanyl and heroin to individuals they believed to be a drug trafficker. Portions of Baez's conducts, including discussions intended to further the wholesale distribution of narcotics, occurred while Baez was engaged in her modified duties as a member of the New York Police Department. Based on my participation in this investigation, my review of law enforcement reports and records, and my conversations with other law enforcement officers and a confidential source working with law enforcement, I have learned the following in substance and in part. The introduction. On or about October 9th, an individual known as confidential source CS, who understood CS to be involved in narcotics trafficking activity, told the confidential source in substance and in part that the user of phone number Baez's phone numbers could provide the confidential source with large quantities of cocaine. Now, that's interesting that the confidential source can normally, I'm not going to say you're a terrible drug dealer, but if the first paragraph of the facts introduces the confidential source, you probably like really not a good drug dealer. Normally it's like drug dealer knows a person who they've had a relationship with, then person introduces the confidential source. So like if it's drug dealer, then drug dealer meets the confidential source with no relationship builder intermediary in between. That's indicative to me that you should probably get a real job or stick to your real job because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That's just my opinion. All right. Later that day, on or about October 9th, the confidential source contacted Baez's phone number and had conversations with an individual who was later identified as Baez. The defendant Baez told the confidential source in substance and in part that she could meet the confidential source on or about October 11th, 2023, regarding a potential narcotics transaction. Now, you in law enforcement, this is already starting out dumb as fuck. I'm just saying, you in law enforcement, you're immediately starting your conversations off with a confidential source. Not somebody you have a relationship with who introduces you to a confidential source, but now you also on the phone. You're on the phone and you're using a phone number that's specifically assigned to you and your job. And your job is a law enforcement officer with the NYPD. This is just giving stupid. Okay. On or about October 11th, so this all started on the 9th. On or about October 11th, Baez told the confidential source to meet her in front of a particular apartment building located in the Bronx, New York, location 1. Now, if location 1 is her fucking apartment, this is ridiculous. At approximately 6:30 p.m. on or about October 11th, the confidential source arrived at the location in the confidential source's car. Member of law enforcement who surveilled the meeting observed Baez approach and enter the confidential source's car. The source and Baez then had a conversation. Look at this. She met the worst type of confidential source. Footnotes provide great facts. Let's read footnote number 1. The confidential source has been providing information to the FBI in exchange for financial compensation since about 2015. The confidential source was convicted of federal narcotics offenses in or about 2015. Information provided by the confidential source has proven reliable and has been corroborated by, among other things, recordings and events independently corroborated by law enforcement. Footnote number 2, it says conversations between the defendant and the confidential source occurred in Spanish. Descriptions of those conversations contained herein are based, among other things, recordings, blah, 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 and my conversations with the confidential source and other law enforcement. Now, I'm going to show y'all something that's really dumb, okay? If you work in law enforcement, let's just break this down at a common sense level. If I work in law enforcement and I was going to do something illegal related to drugs, right? And I meet someone, whether they're a confidential source or informant or whatever they say they are, and I don't know, maybe she could have had restrictions because of her job. I don't know, because she was on limited duty for some other investigation that we don't know what it is. But from a common sense standpoint, I'm in law enforcement. I'm doing some shit I don't got no business. I meet somebody and I think I got a transaction going on. At a bare minimum, I feel like you probably have the ability to look up that person's name and actually look at their criminal background. like you, the most minute, the minimal amount of effort you can do is, yo, I met somebody, but before we have conversations, what's your name? Where you at? Give me all your information. you might know somebody in the right department who could check just to see, like, hey, she probably could have pulled and found all of this information, that not that he was an FBI informant, but she probably could have saw what his charges were, that he had a federal conviction. She probably could have found some things to give a red flag, but she was too worried about money, the lifestyle. I would like to know if the BBL was obtained before or after this transaction, or was the BBL the result of previous interactions for the sale of narcotics? I want to know. Now I got questions. But let's go on and finish reading. But it's given dumb so far. During the conversation, which lasted approximately 20 minutes, which she called from her phone, they already stated that, Baez told the confidential source in substance and in part that Baez could sell the confidential source kilogram quantities of cocaine, fentanyl, and heroin. The confidential source told Baez that the confidential source was interested in purchasing each type of controlled substance and wanted a sample of them before any large purchase. Baez then provided confidential source with a second phone number, Baez phone number 2, for the confidential source to contact and communicate with Baez regarding the potential narcotics transaction. Yeah, this is just given stupid as hell. All right, on or about October 16th, 2023, Baez, using Baez phone number 1, contacted the source and offered in substance and in part to provide the source a sample of fentanyl. Baez directed the confidential source to meet her in front of a particular apartment building located in Yonkers, New York, location 2. Okay, so hopefully these locations aren't her private residence. This is the first thing that she's doing that kind of looks smart. Like, okay, let's not always meet in the same place. All right, later that day, on or about October 16th, 2023, the source drove to location 2. Members of law enforcement who surveilled the meeting observed Baez approach and get into the source's car. During the meeting, which was recorded, Baez handed the source a plastic candy container and indicated that the fentanyl sample was inside. As depicted below, the bottle contained a small, clear bag filled with white powdery substance, which later was tested and confirmed to be to contain fentanyl. During the October 16th meeting, Baez further told the confidential source in substance and in part that Baez had spoken to a drug supplier. Okay, so drug supplier. So probably not getting it from evidence is what I'm getting. She probably getting it from a plug. Is the plug her boyfriend? We'll see. All right. She said she had spoken to a drug supplier who informed Baez that the price for the fentanyl had increased. In response, the source asked Baez to honor their agreement of $30,000 per kilogram. Baez replied in substance and in part that she would talk to the supplier again regarding the price. Members of law enforcement observed that after Baez left the source's car, she entered the apartment building at location 2. All right, so she clearly knows somebody in the apartment. Probably not her apartment, maybe the source's apartment. That'd be crazy to meet a prospective client who you don't know outside of the plug's apartment, but I don't know. Let's see. On or about October 17, 2023, Baez, using Baez phone number 1, told the confidential source in a series of text messages in substance and in part that Baez had a sample of heroin and directed the source to meet her at location 2. All right, now they're meeting at the same place on consecutive days. Not a good look. The source arrived at location 2 and at approximately 1:30 p.m. At approximately 1:40 p.m., members of law enforcement conducted surveillance, observed Baez exit the apartment building located at location 2, approach confidential source a car, and meet with the source while standing next to the source's car. During the meeting, which was recorded, Baez handed the source a clear plastic bag filled with a white powdery substance, which was later tested and confirmed to contain heroin. Baez told the source that she had additional heroin available for sale and that she would provide the source's phone number to her boyfriend, who was later identified as Martinez, the defendant. All right, so she just brought Martinez in. It looks like he is probably the plug. Later that day, everything's going down on the 17th. On or about October 17th, Martinez called the CS from Martinez's cell phone. Man, these people are stupid. Martinez calls the source from Martinez's cell phone. During the phone call, which was recorded, Martinez informed the source that the fentanyl price was not as high as originally believed, and that Martinez could therefore negotiate the price. Martinez further stated in substance and in part that on or about October 19th, 2023, Martinez would have approximately 1 kilogram of heroin and 800 grams of fentanyl for sale, as well as cocaine for sale in the following weeks. Later that evening, Martinez continued to communicate with confidential source using Martinez's cell phone. Martinez told the confidential source in substance and in part that on or about October 19th, 2023, Martinez and Baez could sell the source 1 kilogram of heroin for approximately $25,000 and an additional 800 grams of fentanyl, with pricing to be negotiated later. Martinez directed the source to test the purity of the fentanyl and then pay Baez and Martinez based on the quality of the fentanyl. On or about October 18th, 2023, all consecutive days, this shit is moving fast. Baez and Martinez continued to correspond with the source and negotiate prices for the narcotics. Baez and Martinez told the source in substance and in part that they would also sell the source approximately 400 grams of a lesser quality of heroin and an additional sample of fentanyl. Baez and Martinez directed the source to go to location 2 the following day to complete their drug transaction. So location 1 probably was just a random spot. Location 2 is either where they live or where the source is at or something. All right, on the 19th, the source arrived at location 2 to purchase the narcotics. At approximately 12 p.m., members of law enforcement conducted surveillance, observing Baez exit the apartment building located at location 2 and approached the source. Baez then handed the source packages containing the suspected narcotics, including what appears to be 1 kilogram of heroin, labeled as number 1, 400 grams of heroin, labeled 400, and 640 grams of fentanyl, labeled 640 manzana, and the additional separate sample of fentanyl depicted below. The arrest. Based on my participation in the arrest of the defendants and my conversations with other law enforcement agents, I'm aware of the following in substance and in part. The defendant handed the suspect the narcotics. Following Baez's arrest, members of law enforcement learned, based on their investigation, including discussion with building management. Of course, they were going to talk to building management for the apartment buildings at location 2. Baez and Martinez, the defendants, lived together in an apartment unit inside of the apartment building located at apartment 2. Come on, how did I think we all saw that coming? Like, yo, I don't know. Wasn't that like in the 10 crack commandments? Never sell crack where you asked at. I don't care if they want an ounce, tell them bounce. Like, this is extremely stupid for any narcotics dealer or purported narcotics dealer, but it's especially stupid for a narcotics dealer who is law enforcement, who should be familiar with the basic fundamentals of do's and don'ts that everybody know from watching like 1 or 2 drug movies and listening to 4 or 5 hip hop songs. I don't know. That's just my theory. Members of law enforcement approached the apartment, knocked on the front door, identified themselves as law enforcement, and heard a male voice inside. At or around the same time, members of law enforcement outside the apartment building observed a small package being thrown out of the window. Observed a small package being thrown out of the window of the apartment and land behind the apartment building. Thereafter, Martinez exited the apartment and was placed under arrest. If the cops knock on your door, we're gonna play a little D-boy trivia. And I'm assuming that everybody in the chat is law-abiding citizens. But if you were engaged in the illegal sale of narcotics, or the sale of illegal narcotics, I guess would be more appropriate, and the cops knocked on your door, I'm going to make this a multiple choice question. Where's the first thing that you would do with the drugs? They say the package of drugs was thrown out the window. Would you A, throw it out the window, B, try to hide it in your stash box somewhere, or C, try to flush it down the toilet? What is the answer? I think everybody know what the normal answer would be. Throwing it out the window is wild because you know the place is probably going to be under surveillance. But this dude chose what probably is the worst response you can. I don't know. Of all those options, I feel like you go with what you see in the movies. Probably try to flush it down the toilet. Nobody will see you flushing it down the toilet. You can probably get rid of it. They're not gonna be able to go to the pipes and find anything. I don't know. I'm not trying to tell y'all how to participate in illegal activities. This is just stuff that I've seen on most TV shows that seems to make more sense than throwing the shit out of the window when people are watching you throwing it out of the window. All right, let's go ahead and finish reading this complaint to see how stupid this got. All right, so they placed Martinez under arrest. When law enforcement agents retrieved and investigated the contents of the package, they observed the package contained several smaller bags with suspected narcotics. Following his arrest, Martinez was advised of his Miranda rights. This part is also stupid. Martinez waived his rights and agreed to speak with law enforcement agents. Shout out to people who waive their rights to speak to law enforcement agents. Shout out to y'all. Y'all keep everybody gainfully employed and make some people jobs easier, some people jobs harder, but it is what it is. During the interview that followed, Martinez stated the substance in part that he and Baez had been romantically in a romantic relationship for approximately 3 years and that he lived in the apartment. Martinez consented to the search of an apartment. Now, I will tell you, it was dumb for him to consent for a search of the apartment, but given these facts, he could have not consented to a search of the apartment, and they could have probably still searched his apartment, considering that they, one, observed and had probable cause to believe that illegal activities were going on. But even if they didn't observe or had probable cause, once he threw the package out the window and they confirmed that that was illegal drugs, now they have enough probable cause to go inside the apartment. So either way, whether he would have consented or not, they would have gotten an apartment. But him consenting is just another dumb notch to put on the dumb side of the total tally board for the amount of smart shit and dumb shit that was done. Everything is leaning towards dumb though, with the exception of one thing that ended up turning out being dumb. So I'm not even going to give him credit for that. All right, he consented to the search of his apartment. He consented to the search of his apartment and admitted in substance and in part that a kilogram press machine was located in the closet. During the search of the apartment, law enforcement observed and recovered other things. A cell phone that was in his possession, a small bag containing narcotics was recovered on the ledge of the outside apartment windowsill. Based on my experience and training and involved in this investigations, I believe the package Martinez attempted to throw this bag of narcotics from the apartment, a kilogram press. Based on this training and experience, the involvement in this investigations, I know that a kilogram press is commonly used to press the package of kilogram quantities of narcotics. The kilogram press is printed below. Based on my conversations with other law enforcement agents and my review of the NYPD records, I learned the following regarding Grace Rosa Baez, the defendant. Through the date of her arrest, Baez was employed as a police officer with the NYPD. She began her employment in or about 2012. Damn, she was there for a minute. Due to the alleged misconduct, Baez was placed on modified duty in or about 2020. While the alleged misconduct was under investigation as of October 2023, Baez remained assigned to modified desk duty at a particular NYPD facility. Baez engaged in some of the above described offense conduct while on duty. For example, Baez was on duty on the 11th when she communicated with the confidential source at located 1. On or about October 13th, when Baez negotiated the price and quality of the fentanyl and arranged to deliver a sample of fentanyl to the source. And number 3, on or about October 18th, when Baez negotiated final delivery with the confidential source. So all of this is given dumb to me. You would think, as someone in law enforcement, at a minimum, you would have ran the background check on a confidential source to at least find out the amount of exposure with law enforcement. That wasn't dumb. You took them to. I mean, this is just crazy. The worst part is, as with the first story, I just don't know how you can stop this. If you all take a look at Grace Baez's Instagram page, she seemed like she liked the limelight. She liked the ant shape with the BBL action. She liked to be out in the club. She did speak glowingly about her job, but was she's probably speaking glowingly about her job because it gave her access to do things that were criminal in nature? The answer to that is probably astounding yes. Now let me go ahead and queue up and see what she I'm gonna give y'all the end result so y'all can see what she actually pled guilty to. Let me see. I know she entered plead guilty. Oh, this article got way better pictures. Let's see. Okay, this is actually an interesting fact. So now you're a New York Police Department officer. We know New York expensive as fuck. It's probably like the second or third most expensive city to live in. It says here that Baez in 2022 made $96,000. Hold on. No. I want to read this right. I'm trying to see grass. Okay. So it says the NYPD put Baez on modified duty in 2020 after she was accused of misconduct. Baez made $96,715 in 2022, less than she made the prior year because she worked less overtime on desk duty. So, all right. So this kind of goes back to a point that we talked about in the first story. Hey, a lot of this type of conduct is facilitated by people probably being down bad. She made $96,000 in 2022, which for New York City, I don't think that that's a lot of money at all. $96,000 in New York City is probably like, I don't know. That's probably like, I don't even know. I don't even know if you could live on that, honestly, like without having like a second income from a spouse or a side hustle or some illegal activity. But she made $96,000 in 2022, uh, which was less than what she made the previous year because in 2020 she was placed on desk duty for misconduct. So I don't know. I thought that this was an interesting story to take a look at. Hey, the corruption happened all the time. And if you down bad money wise, you're probably going to be more susceptible. So either you're down bad money wise and you're going to be more susceptible to doing something illegal to get money, or in the alternative, you actually may not be down bad money wise. You may actually make a good amount of money, but you are constantly around people who are flexing. If you're a politician, that's why politicians take bribes, because politicians don't usually make a lot of money, but they're around people who own multi-billion-dollar companies and can really hand them the world. And when they see how they live in comparison to the people who they interact with who are trying to lobby them for shit, they feel broke as hell. So they feel the need to do some extra and go over the top. I don't know. I think that's kind of crazy in my personal opinion. I ain't mad at you. I already told you what my algorithm looked like. Yeah, there are many people still doing what he is doing. He is being silent whistleblower with no names mentioned. I agree. Yeah. What's going on? What's going on? Papa Nat's tuning in. The last thing I want to talk about while I'm here is, and I don't even know the details of it. Y'all could probably let me know, but I thought this story was interesting and I wanted to talk about it. I don't know the details of it, but I'm gonna pull it up. But we're gonna hit this last article up, then we're gonna get out of here for the night because I wanted to talk about this. All right, this is interesting. Rapper Young Thug is a free man. Here are things to know about his plea. Now, this has been the longest fucking trial in the history of trials ever. There's no way. Yo, don't your boy wouldn't do this trial, okay? The longest trial I ever had was 3 weeks, and that was a long ass trial. This trial was long as hell. I haven't observed this trial in depth. I saw news clips about the trial. I've seen video clips. I've seen other attorneys react to the trial. I'm gonna be honest. I think the prosecution's case was just getting flimsy, more and more flimsy as this trial go on. It's two reasons. Reason number one: the longer the trial, the more likely you are to lose the jury. And I'm not saying jurors aren't intelligent. Jurors are very smart, intelligent, and observant. But just like everybody else, you can get fatigued from a subject. Could you imagine being a juror on a Young Thug trial, sitting in there for fucking months, listening to all of these things? Like, at some point, you're going to get fatigued. You're going to forget facts. You're gonna can't not be able to recall facts. It's just it's too fucking long. So I think the reason he was able to get out was because one, I think the length of the trial was taxing on the juror, and when you have facts that are taxing on the jurors, that normally weighs in favor of the defendant. Number two, I've seen some footage, and I'm not going to say that the prosecutors were doing a terrible job, but I have seen video where star witnesses from the prosecution went on the stand and made statements that completely threw a monkey wrench in the prosecution's argument. So juror fatigue because the trial was too damn long. The prosecutors put on witnesses, and it looked like they asked the witnesses questions that they didn't know the answer to, or either the witness gave them a response that they were unaware that they were going to get or could even get. Like, you generally, the rule of thumb is you never ask a question to your witness that you don't know the answer to. And it looks like that rule was violated on multiple times. So trial was too fucking long, benefit to the defendant. Prosecution star witnesses were looking sketchy at best because they said some statements counter to the prosecution's argument. I think there were questions related to the judge earlier in this case and all sorts of things that appeared to make it just look unfair and impartial. Now, Thug was looking at going away for a long time. Prosecutors wanted him to get 25 years. He ended up getting a plea where he has 15 years of probation, but he essentially has credit for the time that he served. He's getting out. He's going to be on probation for 15 years. And if he fucks up while on probation, and there's two things he could really do that'll get him sent back. Well, maybe three. But the two things, but if he messes up while on probation, that underlying sentence that he has, he's going to have to go back and sit and do that entire sentence. Now, I saw some comments where people were saying, yo, this is a setup. They trying to set Young Thug up, and I'm just confused. I don't know why people think that it's a setup. Let me go ahead and read the article. I'm just going off of what I saw. Rapper Young Thug is a free man after pleading guilty to gang and drug and gun charges. About 2.5 years after he was arrested on the charges and a sprawling gang and racketeering indictment, Young Thug was released from custody Thursday evening. It was a remarkable development in a trial that dragged on and been plagued by problems. Exactly. Jury selection at the Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta began in January 2023 and took nearly 10 months. Prosecutor had called dozens of witnesses since opening statements last November and in the trial of 6 defendants. Here are some of the things to know about the plea. Who is Young Thug? I think we already know who Young Thug is. What is he accused of? He was originally indicted and arrested in May of 2022, and more charges were added in the subsequent indictment that August. The second indictment accused Young Thug and 27 others of conspiring to violate Georgia's RICO Act. The rapper was also accused of participating in criminal street gang activity as well as drug and gun charges. How did the plea come about? Prosecutors had been negotiating with Young Thug's lawyer to try to reach a deal that would end his participation in the long-running trial, but those efforts stalled when the two sides disagreed on the conditions. Speaking to reporters after the sentencing, Young Thug's attorney, Brian Steele, declined to discuss the negotiations, but he said prosecutors were pushing for an outrageous condition that they would let him out of custody, but they would have to tether around him so tight that it's unconscionable or ridiculous. Instead, the rapper went forward with a potentially risky non-negotiation or blind plea. Blind pleas are typically bad. Well, the two things that point me as interesting. During the course of the trial, there's the only way I am negotiating for a potential plea while I'm engaged in a trial is if my trial is falling to shit. If I feel confident in the evidence that I got and the presentation I'm giving to the jury, no, the best plea you ever going to get for me is before we go to trial. Once you make me commit and say, hey, we're going to decline that plea and go to trial, nah, this is it. We're going to run this shit all the way from start to finish. And when we get to the end, I'm asking for the max. That's what it is. So if in the middle of the trial, I'm having conversations like, yo, you want to resolve this? Or what are y'all talking about? The only way most prosecutors would do that is if the case is falling apart, or an alternative, it could be a reason that they were just wasting too much resources. These prosecutors, the court, the judge were just tied up in court. They got other cases that this prosecutors or the prosecutors in this case could be working. But I think it's a combination of the both. I think that this case was taking up too many of the prosecutors' office resources, but I also think the prosecution's case was like getting pulled at the threads and it was just unraveling before their eyes. Now, this is risky. I've had clients when I was a defense attorney do it before, but it's an open plea. An open plea is just saying that, yo, my client is going to plead guilty, but we can't agree to what the terms of his sentence are because y'all want too much. You saying I want too little. We're going to do an open plea and we're going to tell the court what we want, what's in line with the minimum. You tell the court what you want, which is probably going to be more towards the maximum, and we'll let the judge make the decision. So it says instead the rapper went forward, but that's what a blind plea is or open plea. The rapper went forward with potentially a risky non-negotiated or blind plea, meaning that he will enter the plea without having a deal in place with prosecutors. He pled guilty to one gang charge. He pled guilty to one gang charge, 3 drug charges, and 2 gun charges. He also entered a no contest plea to another gang charge and a racketeering conspiracy charge, meaning that he decided not to contest those charges, but could be punished as if he had pled guilty. Will he spend time in prison? No, as long as he abides by the conditions of his sentence. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Paige Whitaker gave him a total sentence of 40 years. Woo! 40 years is crazy work. Young Thug is what, like 33, maybe 30, something like that? The first 5 years were to be served in prison, but that was commuted to time served. Then he has 15 years on probation. Finally, a backloaded 20 years in prison will be commuted to time served if he complies with all of the conditions of his probation. If he doesn't complete his probation successfully, he will have to serve those 20 years in prison. Prosecutors want a Young Thug sentence to be 45 years with 25 years in prison and the remaining 20 on probation. The charges against him carried a potential maximum sentence of 120 years in prison. Prosecutor Adrian Love said. Still had asked the judge for a 45-year sentence with 5 in prison, commuted to time served, and 40 years on probation. God damn. Now, the only reason the judge gave this sentence, because I'm going to be honest, this is a sweetheart deal. I think the reason that the judge gave this sentence, like, yo, time served for what you did. You got all this time on the back end. If you fuck up on probation, you got probation for 15 years. If I were a juror sitting on the bench, I'm only letting you walk out of here because I've been sitting here listening to this trial and I think it's just kind of a shit show. I don't think the evidence was that strong, so I'm not going to beat you over the head. I guarantee you, if the evidence was on point and the prosecutors laid out a great case, the judge wouldn't be like, we're going to let you go home today, Thug, so you can get back to making stoner music. It ain't no fucking way in hell he would have agreed to that. So I think the judge also saw that it was jury fatigue and the facts and the presentation were a little sketch. Why did he say, what did the judge say before sentencing? He apologized to his family. What did he say to the judge before sentencing? He apologized to his family, his managers, the courtroom deputies, and really everybody that got something to do with this situation for the time the case ate up. I'm hoping that you allow me to go home today and just trust me to do the right thing, he told the judge. Blah, blah, blah. What are the conditions of his sentence? All right, this is where it gets important. All right, the conditions of his sentence. He must, damn, they banned him from the whole area. I didn't even read it. He must stay away from the metro Atlanta area as defined by the census for the first 10 years of his probation, except for weddings, funerals, graduations, or serious illness of immediate family members. That's wild. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Like, get the fuck away. That's crazy. Except for weddings and illnesses of immediate family members. He can arrive 24 hours before the event and must leave within 48 hours after. But he also must return to Atlanta area 4 times during each year of his probation to make an anti-gang, anti-gun violence presentation at a grade school, middle school, or high school, or at an organization like the Boys and Girls Club. Those visits can count towards the 100 hours of community service he must complete during each year of his probation. And that's a common thing. I don't know if y'all remember when T.I. got his sweetheart deal from the gun charges. He did like a 1-800 Crime Stoppers commercial. That's kind of the law enforcement way of saying, like, yeah, we know you young thug, but go do this outreach because you belong to us. That's what it is. He also cannot knowingly have contact with any member of a criminal street gang. The judge said that includes other people named in the indictment, with the exception of his brother and the rapper Gunna, with whom he has contractual obligations. He cannot participate in criminal street gang activity or promote any gang, including through hand signs. That's like 30% of his music is promoting gangs. I don't know. He also cannot contact the victims in this case or their families, and may not own a gun, must not use drugs other than those prescribed to him. So he's going to live somewhere where he can get a prescription for marijuana probably, must submit to random drug tests, and must allow searches of himself and his property and electronics. I don't know. Like, y'all let me know. Y'all think that was a sweetheart deal? Yeah, that trial was long as hell. It was too long for even me. That's why I wouldn't follow it. That's why I didn't do no video on it. When I saw it, once it went past like 2 weeks, I was like, oh, hell no, I ain't gonna ever talk about this until it's over. Yeah. Probably because of his former lifestyle and the long probation. Not sure if he'll be able to comply with the terms. Now, let's talk about that, okay? Because I'm gonna be honest, right? Like, this sounds wild. Like, real story, though. This is a real story. As a criminal defense attorney, I've represented clients, and I get it. Like, hey, I'm not doing the time, I'm not sitting in custody, but I've represented clients, and the deal we would get, it would say something like, let's say, okay, this is what prosecutors will do, right? Sometimes they'll toss out a couple of options. They'll say, you can take option A. Now, option A is, hey, your guy's already been in custody as he's waiting for trial. He's been in custody, let's say, for 6 months. Option A is, you know what? Since he's been in custody for 6 months, we'll give him, if he wants to plead, he can plead to 18 months. He'll get credit for the 6 months he did. He do 1 year. And after he finishes 18-month sentence, he done, no probation or nothing. Clean record. Option B would be, your client will get out right now, but we're going to hold 5 heads over his head while he's on supervised probation for 3 years. And if he messes up on probation, he has to go back and do that 5-year sentence. And hey, this is a real conversation. I know y'all probably like, yo, that's the worst advice you could give. But I got this person's record right in front of me. I see the amount of encounters they had. I see that they always get caught. Dude, whatever you do, you get caught. You always get caught. If you always get caught, I'm like, bro, just sit the 12 months. I was like, hey, it's my obligation to tender both plea agreements to you. Here's plea agreement A, where you'll just do 12 more months in custody and you get out with no probation or nothing and you're done. And you already been sitting for 6 months. Do 12 more months. That's your 18 months. They normally is a couple programs in custody that we can have you do where they could cut off maybe 2 or 3 months on your sentence. Done deal. That's option A. Option B, because I'm obligated to give you all your plea agreements, communicate everything. Option B, you get out today, but you got 5 years over your head and 3 years of probation if you jack up. I'd be like, which option do you want? If you want to get out today, it's right in front of you. But realistically, bro, you get caught every 12 months, you get caught doing something you don't have no business. You might as well just go and sit down and not have, and I know that's fucked up to say, for me to be like, yo, just go. You're already in jail. Just stay there for 9 to 12 more months and don't have no other time and no other options, obligations to the court hanging. I know that's jacked up to say, but real talk, if I'm looking at you and I know that you're a habitual criminal, and hey, you could turn over a new leaf, but I speak in the realm of probability, not possibility. It's possible that I win a lottery, but the probability of winning the lottery is 0 because I don't play the lottery. So, but I've actually like, yo, you may want to sleep on this for 2 or 3 days. This option will give you a clean slate, and people will be like, nah, I can't do that, DFD. I gotta get out of here. I gotta get home and see my family. And I get it. I'm not faulting them for that choice, but what ultimately happens, they end up going right back in custody. So, yo, I think that's a really good comment. I hope you can comply. I hope Young Thug can comply with the terms. But hey, double time to that one. I think it's going to be extremely difficult for him to comply with the terms. Now, I'll tell you what I think is going to be difficult, but let's go there. The trial continues because 2 defendants didn't take the plea deals. Yeah, that's crazy. And I'm sure his attorneys at some point, I would always move to separate the trials. I don't like having the trials when there's a bunch of fucking defendants and I'm at the table with other lawyers and it gets too messy. I've never been a fan of that. Uh-huh. I got help with watching the Grammys. A Harris rally. I know it's almost that time. It's almost election season. Let's see. Here's the questions. 2 of his co-defendants still face murder charges as a part of the RICO. Will Thug be found liable in civil court since he took an Alfred plea to gang activity? That's 100% possibility. That's a good point. And a damn good point that was made. He 100% can be found liable in civil court is a much lower standard. And the fact that you took that Alfred plea, even though it doesn't necessarily implicate guilt, it is something that a jury may consider if they're listening to evidence being brought before them in a civil capacity. But that's a damn good point. I'm gonna be honest, like I actually wasn't a Young Thug fan, but before he got incarcerated, I was I don't know if I remember when I was deep into the metaverse because I was trying to see if there was any way I could monetize it, and they had some cool ass games, 100% candor to the tribunal. But when I was into the metaverse, he had like this virtual concert, and I was like, "What the fuck is a virtual concert?" And I went, and I was like, "Yo, this is actually kind of dope." And I listened, and I was like, "Oh man, he actually is speaking real words if you actually pay attention to what he's saying." And I realized, like, man, Young Thug is actually pretty talented. Then he like got locked up, and I was like, oh, guess that's over with. But do I think he'll be able to comply? I would like to think that he's learned his lesson. I would like to think that he's going to turn over a new leaf and still be able to make good music and make a living, but it's going to live the straight and narrow. But statistically, the recidivism rate for persons on probation, giving his age, the type of crime, the amount of the amount of persons in his circle who fit the description of people he can't fucking be around. I hope he can comply. But if somebody said let's bet on if he can comply, can't comply, I would probably lean towards can't comply. Now, there's a difference between being able to comply and getting violated. Okay. Now, typically when you're on probation, there are only a few things that are absolute deal breakers. Okay. Things that are going to be hard for him to comply with. I think him being around convicted felons is going to be problems. Because probably everybody he fucking knows is convicted felons. His family, his all of his damn friends. Like the dude ain't gonna be able to interact and communicate with nobody. That's going to be a problem. But can he comply? Probably not. Will he get violated? If he can avoid these 3 things, he probably won't get violated. Violation number 1 that always will get you into custody is if you get new criminal charges and are convicted of those charges. So if I'm representing somebody in a probation hearing, they have probation, they're charged with a new offense or for some other criminal crime that occurred while they was on probation. The probation officer, because of this new offense, he violates his probation. And most times what happened is in that situation where I have a client and that client's on probation, while he's on probation, he gets a new charge and it's pending. He's not found guilty. Most times, as an attorney, I would go in front of the court and say, Your Honor, we're asking to continue this probation hearing until we get a disposition on his pending charges. We have facts and we believe that the information and facts are favorable to us being able to get these charges dismissed. If these charges are dismissed, it won't, in fact, be a violation because being charged with the crime isn't necessarily a reason you could get violated for it, but most judges won't violate you for getting a new criminal charge. But when you eat that conviction, is a wrap. And it also depends what the offense is. If he got like a serious crime like drug trafficking or something like that, he probably gonna screw. So will he get violated? The question is, can he avoid getting any criminal convictions or serious charges while on probation? Can he avoid absconding? I think he's going to avoid absconding. There's no way Young Thug is just going to go vanish and go missing and nobody know where the fuck he at. That would be crazy to do considering this guy has a career. Those two things. The other thing that could get him violated, and this one is real petty, is if he like, it's petty, but I've seen judges do it. If you keep failing drug tests, you keep failing drug tests, judges will violate you. But they may not violate you to activate the whole sentence. Sometimes what they'll do is split it. They'll be like, yo, since you failed the drug test, what we're going to do is you got to go do 6 months in custody. After this 6 months, you can come back out on probation and you'll get another shot. But while you're in custody, you got to complete the drug treatment program, blah, 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 blah. So if he could avoid those things, he probably won't get his probation revoked and get his underlying sentence activated. Statistically, the odds are in his favor, though. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I like Young Thug music. I don't know him as a person. I hope he get his shit together, but statistically, the odds are not in his favor. That's real talk. That's what it is. Anytime you want to talk about Oakland's Operation Ceasefire, we can talk Alameda County worse than Fulton. That's a damn shame. We could definitely do that. Slave patrols, right? Let's see. Allegations of criminal activity before conviction. That's the lowest standard of proof. Yeah, allegations like it because it depends what he's charged with. We're in with this. It depends what he's charged with. Let's say Thug is on probation because he is on probation. Let's say Thug is on a probation, but he gets a weapons charge. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. That's a serious charge. Your ass going away. He probably going to go in custody. And on that new charge, I guarantee you a judge is probably not going to give him bond considering what he was on probation for. You got weapons charges and you was on probation for all this serious shit? Fuck no. So he's going to be sitting in custody. So a lot of times what will happen is a little bit of gamesmanship. But in that scenario, what a defense attorney or a smart defense attorney would do is say, he's probably going to fight it. Let me backtrack. He's probably going to instruct his defense attorneys to fight it because he has so much time, 20 years being held over his head. But sometimes what will happen, let's say, and I've seen attorneys do this. If you're on probation, you get a new charge that he's arrested for. Young Thug gets possession of a firearm by a felon. Now he's being held in custody on that firearms charge. Now, while he's in custody, being held on that firearms charge, he's earning credit for that firearms charge, but he's not earning any credit for those 20 years that he has over his head because he's not being held on that charge. So the first thing his attorney is going to do is try to fight the shit out of it. Like, yo, we got to see if we can beat this gun charge because we don't want to get this underlying 20 years activated. A possession on a gun charge is pretty straightforward. If he had actual constructive possession that could be proven, he's going to be screwed. Constructive possession is you don't have it on your person, but you control the instrumentality where the firearm was found. Gun is in the car. You're the driver, owner of the car. There's 4 people in the car. Driver, you have constructive possession. But if I'm Young Thug, you better get somebody else to take that charge for you. But the first option is the attorney's going to try to fight that new charge to get that out of the way, hopefully get a dismissal so he doesn't have to eat that 20 years. Because the minute he gets convicted, that 20 probation is revoked. He's doing that 20 years. if he can't beat that charge, what some will do is say, hey, what we're going to do is you're sitting in custody now on a gun charge. Let's go ahead, revoke your probation so you can start earning time that you're currently sitting on a gun charge. You can get time for your 20 years that you're sitting as well. Then when you resolve the gun charge, they'll get the judge to run that concurrently with the 20 years that he's doing. So if he got 5 years on the gun charge, he got his probation revoked, he wouldn't be doing 25 years. Those 5 years will run concurrent with the 20 years. So he would still do the 20-year sentence. But he's not going to want to do 20 years. So his only option, and he's going to have some money because he's going to be able to put out music. His only option is going to be able to fight that shit. So I hope the guy can stay out of custody. But statistically, shit is not in his favor. That's it for this video. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments of the BBL cop, the DEA agent, and more importantly, what do y'all think about Young Thug's probation? I'm actually gonna put that up as a poll question. Do you think Young Thug will violate the terms of his probation? Yes or no? Real simple. I think I'm gonna put that in a poll question. As always, I appreciate everybody who tuned in, everybody in the chat for allowing me to holler at y'all and go over these stories. Y'all have a good, safe, healthy, peaceful weekend. Be safe, y'all. Peace.